forearms. The one who narrated this to me from the Messenger of Allah said, "It is as if I can now see the whiteness of his forearms of the Messenger of Allah as he uncovered them." Continued saying, "The Prophet carried it and placed it at the head of the diseased. He then said, 'By this I mark and grave and my brother, and shall bury there whoever dies of his family. One should stand at the grave and supplicate for the diseased, asking him to be kept firm in his faith and to be forgiven. He should also tell those present to do the same." Said, when the Prophet would finish the burying of a deceased, he would stand at the grave and say, "Seek refuge for your brother, and ask for him to be made firm, for he is now being questioned." It is permissible to sit at the grace during the burial in order to remind those present of death and what will occur after death. This point is substantiated by the following hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib. "We went with the Prophet during the funeral of one of the Ansar. We reached the grave, and when the niche was dug, the Messenger of Allah sat, and we sat around him, silent, as if birds were upon our heads. He had a stick with which he was poking the ground. Then he raised his head and said, 'Seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave.' He said that twice or 3 times. Then he said, 'When the believing servant is about to depart from this world and enter into the hereafter, angels descend to him.'" He said 3 times. When the believing servant is about to depart from the world and enter into the hereafter, angels descend to him from the heaven. Their face is white like the sun. They have with them a shroud from the shroud of paradise, and embalming fluid from the fragrance of paradise. They sit away from him at the extent of his eyesight. Then the angel of death approaches until he sits at his head. He then says, "O pure soul, come out to forgiveness from your Lord and his pleasure." Then the soul comes out, like water dropping from the opening of a water skin. The angel of death then takes it. When he takes it, it does not remain in his hands for the blinking of an eye, but he immediately puts it into that shroud and fragrance, and from that soul comes out the best smell, like the best smelling musk of this world. They then ascend with the soul. They do not pass by any gathering of angels except that they would say, "What is this beautiful soul?" They will say, "It is so and so, the son of so and so," calling him by the best names that he was called in this world. When they reach the lowest heaven, they ask for it to be opened, and the gates are opened for them. The most exalted angels of each level escort him to the next level until he reaches the 7th heaven. Allah will then say, "Write my servant's record in the Iliyin and return him to the earth, for from it I created them, into it I send them back, and from it I shall resurrect them again." Then his soul is placed once again into his body. 2 angels come and sit next to him. They say to him, "Who is your Lord?" He says, "My Lord is Allah." And they then say to him, "What is your religion?" He will say, "My religion is Islam." Then they say to him, "Who is that man who was sent among you?" He will say, "He is the messenger of Allah." They will say, "What is your knowledge?" He will say, "I read the book of Allah, believed in it, and affirmed what it said." A caller then called from the heaven, "My servant has verily told the truth, so provide him with furnishing from paradise, clothe him from paradise, and open for him a door to paradise." He is then brought, its scent and fragrance. His grave is then expanded as far as his vision can see. Then a man with a beautiful face, excellent clothing, and fine scent comes. He says, "Have glad tidings of that which will make you happy, for this is the day that you were promised." The diseased will say to him, "Who are you? Your face is like that which comes with goodness." He will reply, "I am your righteous deeds." The diseased will then say, "My Lord, establish the hour so that I may return to my family and property." But when the disbelieving slave is about to depart from this world and enter into the hereafter, angels will with black faces descend to him from the heaven. They have with them rough fabric. They sit away from him at the extent of his eyesight. Then the angel of death approaches until he sits at his hand. He then says, "O evil soul, come out to wrath and anger from your Lord." It spreads throughout the body, but it is taken out like a skewer is pulled through wet wool. It is then taken, and as soon as it is taken, it is not in their hands for the blinking of an eye, but it is placed in that rough fabric. From this soul comes the worst scent one can find on the earth. He is then taken up, and whenever they pass by any angels, they say, "Who is this evil soul?" They will answer, "It is so and so, the son of so and so," and they will call him by the worst name that he was known by in this world. This will continue until they reach the lowest heaven. They will ask for permission to enter, and it will not be granted. Then the Messenger of Allah recited the verse, "Verily, those who deny our signs and treat them with arrogance, for them the gates of heaven will not be opened, and they will not enter paradise until the camel goes through the eye of a needle, of the needle, which is impossible." The Messenger of Allah then continued, "Allah will then say, 'Write my servant's record in the Sijin.' He will then be thrust with great force." The Messenger of Allah then read the verse,